Welcome everyone to another episode of How I Met Your Mortgage. As always, I'm your host, Adam Smith with Just the Tips Coaching. And we've got a really cool guest for you guys today. Somebody that is a virgin to the show, I guess, as it were. We're going to introduce that. She's as new to this as a lot of you guys are. So this is going to be really cool stuff that way. But welcome to the show, June Lemmings. Hi, June.
Hi, Adam. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad you were able to pop on here. This is going to be a lot of fun. So you and I didn't get a whole lot of opportunity to talk before we went live, which is unique for us. And you had said you'd never been on a podcast before.
I never have.
All right. Well, this is really cool then. So just so you're aware, and I'll bet a lot of our audience is, we are live on a video cast on Mondays, and we're broadcasting to Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
Okay.
And then we convert that to our podcast. We take out the audio track and convert that to a podcast, and that goes up on Amazon, Apple, and Spotify about 48 hours from now. So, yeah, it's kind of cool stuff. But basically, the gist of what we do here is, well, let's, in the interest of total transparency, which we do think is a very big deal, authenticity and transparency are some of the things we really want to emphasize in our work and in our coaching clients' work. And I think that that's a lot of what makes people successful, is that you've actually been put through the ringer for quite a period and you didn't even know it, because we track agents' production before we even ask them if they want to be on the podcast. And our audience, for the most part, knows this. So now they know. And now you know that we've been watching for a while. That we're like your own little paparazzi here. And we know that you are doing some really solid business. And then obviously we track it through, oh boy, well, you were probably booked out to be on the show about a year. We probably tracked your production for a year or more before that and subsequently, and make sure that everything still jives. So yeah, for those of you that are tuning in, we know that June does some badass work. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. All right. So that's certainly the gist there. But really, what goes on here, what we really want to know is who you are, what you do, where you came from, what in the world made you think getting into real estate was going to be a good idea, because that's insane, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, give us a little bit of background. How long have you been doing this? Where are you at? What does that kind of stuff look like?
So I actually didn't plan on getting into real estate. I had
That's
no
cool.
idea.
Okay, I like that.
So I was a foster kid and housing was a big thing. So I had a goal and a dream to own a home. I don't know why the age was 28, but for some reason it was 28. I bought my first home when I turned 29 and did not have the best marriage and had to end up giving up my whole dream. It was a house like 1,900 square foot on a half an acre. We had a horse, potbelly pig, all that, but just was not in a good marriage and had to move back to Colorado. That was in '02. Little didn't I know my ex-husband was going to leave the house. I was going to eventually have to do a short sell on my first home.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And when
What's this? Where was the home? Where were you?
It was actually in Oklahoma.
Okay.
But from Colorado, I had moved around with his job.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So I did not think I would ever be able to buy a home again. And when I moved back to Greeley, Colorado, I actually looked at the paper. Back then, we read the newspaper, and there was an ad that said, "Why rent when you can own?" And it was a real estate investor. And after talking to him for a while, he's like, I can't pay you, but I have a vacant property in Eaton, Colorado, and you can come work for me. I did end up learning from the best from real estate investors before I became a realtor about a year and a half later.
Okay. You've been at this for quite a while then, more than 20 years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's some interesting background in there.
Yes.
A lot of things that have shaped who you are today.
That's correct.
All right. So we're in the early 2000s here. You go work in the real estate game. You're working for this company here. Well, I don't want to say locally. For those of you that aren't familiar with the geography, I'm basically in Denver, Colorado. June is in Greeley still.
Yes.
So we're probably talking, what, 50 miles northeast of
Mhm.
Denver, somewhere in that
Exactly.
arena,
Yeah,
home of the University of Northern Colorado. Go
exactly.
Bears, right? Okay. So now that we've laid that down, you worked for this company for how long?
So I worked for, well, and there was another real estate investor. I was doing outbound telemarketing
Okay.
at the
Wow.
same. Basically, I was working the first investor. I was following up on foreclosures, things like that. Within 3 months, one of the phone calls I made with a property that had, very motivated and like O2, like, 20,000 equity, things like that. And so I called, and it was a real estate investor that I knew from when I went to college at UNC. And he's like, "Is this June Lemmings?" I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "Why are you wasting your time? You should work for me." He had over 100 rental properties. And I learned he was the best of the best way before all the fix and flip shows and everything else. He could walk in
Sure.
a house 5 minutes. He knew if he wanted to buy it, if it made sense or not.
Okay.
So,
And there have been some changes since then, not just to the industry, but obviously to
mhm.
your lifestyle. How long have you been running the Lemmings team? And it's Keller Williams, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I've been with Keller Williams now for 4 years.
Okay.
And I think the most important thing is hiring an assistant. So after, probably within the first couple years when I started doing okay, I had a friend that asked me if she could run errands or do anything I needed to help me out. That was my first assistant, which has evolved. And I worked at one company that really wasn't set up for 10 years, and it was a local boutique company here in Greeley. They really weren't set up for teams. And you're going to laugh about this, Adam, but there was a commercial property I wanted to buy so I would have enough room to grow a team. And my broker said, "No, you either have to be at our office or at home." So my husband built some office space, second floor of his shop. How many guys do that? So it was kind of cool.
That is
So,
cool.
yeah.
I'm surprised that you had to be at home, either in the office or at home, but
Yeah,
neither here nor there.
it was
Although
old school. Things have changed since then.
a true story, you really struck a chord with all of us here at Just the Tips, and certainly our coaching clients. And um, for those of you that aren't real familiar with us, we've got two major pieces that we work on, and one is lead generation and how to do things like contact management, social media, and writing, and getting published, and doing video work, and on and on. And then the latter half of our program is about team structure, how to build a business that you can walk away from while it still pays you. And the very first thing we really tell people when we start that is you need an assistant. And most of the time we get feedback like, "Oh, I can't afford that." I'm like,
Mhm.
let's think about that for a minute, because even in today, and I know my math is off by what goes on in the real world, but if you had an assistant that you paid for 20 hours a week at 20 bucks an hour at 1600 a month, but it would free up 80 hours of your time that month. Could you find one more deal with 80 hours? Just one. And does
Exactly.
that one deal pay you more than $1,600?
Yeah.
And of course, most people are dumbfounded when we do the simple math that way. Like, oh, yeah. I'm like, right. You do actually need some help. Please get some help. You guys have got to be working on identifying your high dollar activity. You've got to be working on identifying doing the things that you love to do. You've got to be working on making sure that you are constantly building, developing, growing,
Mhm.
because you have to go into real estate. You have to go into mortgages. And this is true for you guys that are in insurance and financial planning and so on and so forth. As a business, it's a marathon, not a sprint, a career, not a job. You've got to really think about it as being a business owner, no matter what position you have in whatever company you're with. And Keller Williams is obviously one of the biggest on the planet.
Mhm.
And for those of you that are in the back, I'll say it a little louder. June treats her business as a business. That's why that level of success, well, a part of the reason why that level of success is what it is, because boy, how many killer agents are out there just doing it kind of like as a job, right? I think we talk all the time about, yeah, Keller has the most agents there are. But what that means is that the average transaction per agent per year is the lowest of these big companies because there's so many people that aren't doing what June is doing, you guys. You've got to look at this differently. And yeah, get an assistant. Start getting things off your plate so that you can do more. So yeah, you really struck a chord with me there, June, because that is so important.
I would like to add two things to what you're saying, Adam. So you either can pay for it with pain, meaning you can do what you're doing and expect different results, that definition of insanity. Or you can pay for it and actually have the results immediately. Because how many times do you just like, I can't afford it, and just keep plugging along and then realize, you know what, I could have done that a couple of years ago.
So part of the exercise that we make our coaching clients go through is to literally make a list of everything that has to get done every day, every week, every month, whatever, so that deals get closed. And whether that's in the marketing and the lead gen and the graphics creation or editing videos or editing copy, whatever it is, all those things from lead gen on through to closings, make a list. And I kid you not, we actually had a coaching client make that list and say, yeah, I have to do all this. There isn't any of this somebody else could do. Like, well, come on now. I understand that all of you, all of us, June and I included, I assure you guys, are type A. We're control freaks. That's what goes on in this space. And yes, all of you believe that nobody could do those tasks in your job as well as you could. And you may be right. You may actually be right. But if somebody can do it 80% as well as you can, let them do it. Focus on that lead gen. Focus on that high dollar activity. Here's for you guys in mortgages and real estate in particular, and this is obviously just where I run, so I know the reality of this. You do not need to know how to negotiate an inspection objection if you don't have any buyers or sellers. There's no need. I do not need to know how to price a loan if I don't have any borrowers. There's just no need for that. You've got to focus on what the job really is, because everything that's a byproduct of that, for the most part, you can pay somebody else to do. So, yeah, but boy, how much of that escapes how much of the real estate population, I think the real estate population is a really good example in this case. In June, I'm sure you've seen a ton of this. We know. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and I'm sure you do this with your students and stuff, but just figuring out how much your dollar per hour, how much you're worth, and looking at it. If you're worth, say, $100 an hour, why are you doing $20 an hour
work? Right.
It just doesn't make sense, because you can make so much more money if you have that assistant.
Yeah. Well, and that's certainly part of it. And don't get me wrong, guys, while June is absolutely speaking the truth, this kind of behavior is going to set you up for longevity, for an actual career. You can move your business to any end result that you want, including if you want to leave it intact, step away from it while it still pays you. That's kind of the goal here. Then you can do that. I think one of the big pieces of the puzzle that a lot of these people miss is that having a team structure in place this way, enabling yourself to be constant and consistent about what you're doing as far as finding buyers and sellers, is what it's going to take to get off of the roller coaster. And we all know it. We've all been there. That income roller coaster is the end result, because the beginning is a roller coaster. If you are constant and consistent about your activities of finding buyers and sellers, or if you're in mortgages, finding borrowers, then everything else becomes constant and consistent. But you can't do that on your own. You just can't, because you're going to get busy with your business. You're going to get busy with the things that somebody else at TC, an assistant, whatever, an LOA, if you're in mortgages, should be helping you with. And as a result, if you don't have that support, your lead gen is going to suffer. You're not going to be spending the time doing the things to find buyers, sellers, borrowers, whatever. And now it's inconsistent. Now you're back on this roller coaster. So, yeah, I think that this is uber important. Tell us about your assistant. Who is it? What kind of work do they do for you? Is it full time? Hit us. This is
Yes.
valuable.
So one of them is she does more contract to close, not just transaction management, but she
Okay.
does all on the back end and stuff. And I feel like we provide so much of a better level of service because how can you be taking care of, more than one person at a time? So it allows me to be able to be with my clients and be 100% focused on them. And she's able to do back end stuff. So we're providing the best service possible.
That's also a big piece of the puzzle. We don't talk about this enough. You guys could have the greatest lead gen activity on the planet. You've got funnels dialed in, or your contact management is 100, whatever the case may be. If you're not providing those clients, once you've secured them, the absolute best experience, then there's no point. The idea here is to build a repeat and referral business. But if your clients aren't having a killer experience, well, they're not going to use you again, and they're not going to refer more people to you. And that's got to be the goal. So yet another big box to tick off by having this help, having a team, having some structure with that is that, yeah, you're getting your clients a killer experience so that they do want to use you again, so that they do want to refer people to you. And that's got to be a piece of your puzzle if you want to get to a point where you have a strict repeat and referral business that is hopefully mostly comprised of repeat clients and client referrals. That's what we should all strive for. That's kind of like the first plateau in all of this. Is you guys need to get to a point where your business is repeat and referral. And you hope, don't get me wrong, I love the real estate agents. Thank you so much for referring me a buyer borrower. But I don't ever want to rely on you doing your lead gen work impacting my business. That's not fair to either of us. So I want my business to mostly be repeat clients and client referrals. And if I'm not providing a killer experience, I'm not going to get that. So yeah, that's another big piece of getting some help. And she's pretty much doing contract to close, you said?
Yes.
Do you have any help on the front end, lead gen, a VA?
I do not have a VA, and a lot of the lead gen actually is on me, to be honest, because that's one of my superpowers.
You're the salesperson. You're the face. Yep. June, did we lose you?
I'm still here.
Okay.
So 86% of my business is repeat referral, referred from other people in the community because we do a lot of stuff in the community.
I agree. I think that that's part of the reason that we wanted you here today. I think that you've got some of that really dialed in when it comes to, I guess the old school term would be farming, really. You're kind of hyper local to your community.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you're doing? What are some of these events and activities and exercises that you're going through?
I do at least one big event every quarter for my clients. I did an adult prom, like parents' night out, or even
we saw your social media on that. It was fantastic.
Thank you. And we had a huge barbecue that we had I don't know how much, if it's that big for your business or whatever, but 200 people RSVP'd and had about 140 people that actually showed up.
Well, I think that's important because I do think that that's a big number. Mm-hmm. And I do think that everybody should kind of understand that 70% mark is about a solid number. If you guys are doing something where you are attempting to incorporate 200 people, let's even call it 100 people to use a nice round number, and that number of people say, heck yeah, I'm coming, I'm going to be there, I'm going to participate, you probably really are talking about 70. So yeah, I do think that that's valuable. Keep going. This is killer stuff.
So I feel like we are best friends with our clients during the transaction. I think it's so important that you have that relationship afterwards. And if you look at all the stats, most people would generally use their realtor or lender if that person kept in contact with them. And I think a lot of times people are trying to do like set it and forget it, but you actually have to have some type of personal contact. Like, what's wrong with you calling them for their birthday or calling them for their homeversary, you know? So
Oh yeah.
I always do a huge fall festival, like pumpkin patch, something like that for my clients. We do cookies and cocos with Santa, pumpkin pies, things like that for Thanksgiving. So we do a lot of things to try to get more face time with our clients.
A lot of client appreciation type stuff.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And obviously, we're doing some good contact management. And yeah, for those of you out there, if you're not doing birthday campaigns, home buying anniversary campaigns, these kinds of things, you're really cheating yourself.
Mhm,
But yeah, you've got to have real contact,
mhm.
live conversation, face to face, these kinds of things. And I do think it's important. And I bet you would agree that it's easier to make clients friends than it is to make friends clients.
Yeah. Mhm.
I
And
think
when
that
you get
that's a big deal.
Yeah, and when you get referred by somebody, the honor that you have and, like, help like, right now, I have a teacher that I'm helping for one of the schools because I have some, schools that are on the lower income spectrum that I do a lot of things for the teachers. So my farm is teachers, and I love them. They made a huge difference in my life being a foster kid. They really made a big difference in my life, so I try my give back is for teachers.
That's really cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
then boy, the history that you bring from your span into what you're doing in business today is really, really big. This is fantastic stuff, no question.
Thank
Seeing
you.
here you were all nervous about being on a podcast and laying out some killer content for our audience.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really cool stuff. Yeah, I can't believe we haven't done this before, to be perfectly honest. You've been doing this here forever, almost as long as I have. I'm not going to say anymore because I'm feeling pretty old these days, and I don't want to rub that in myself too much. But yeah, I do think that is a really big deal, and you're obviously ticking off a lot of boxes on what I'd like to think we work on with our coaching clients. But I would really say, and again, the interest of full transparency, that most of what we work on with our clients is probably shit that people know they need to be doing. They're
Mhm,
just not doing it, or they don't have the structure, they don't have the regiment, they don't have the automation, the systemization. And actually, I was about to say the tools, but I got news for all of you. You guys do have the tools. You're
mhm,
just not using them or using them properly. So yeah, you all have your CRM, you all have your phone, but yeah, you're already spending money on all the shit you need to make this fly. You're just not doing it.
mhm,
And maybe it's just that you're not doing the work. Maybe it's just that you don't know how to do it. You don't know how to structure it. Maybe it's because you don't have an assistant. You probably ought to think long and hard about that, those kinds of things.
mhm.
But yeah, so let's talk modern day type of stuff, because
Okay.
you and I have been fairly reflective. We've talked about what you've done over the last 20 plus years, longer actually, if we go back to your childhood, which we've covered a little bit of. But would you say today that your business is strictly repeat and referral?
It's 86%. So,
Wow, that's a number.
uh-huh.
Okay.
So 14% would be like ad calls, like sign calls, open house leads, things like that.
Okay. And of the 86%, how much of that do you think is repeat clients and client referrals? So you're not getting a buyer from a mortgage originator like me, or a
Yeah.
financial planner, divorce attorney, etc. How much of it is strictly in your client circle, you think?
Majority.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But
Especially
I
if you're
do I do
taking
have
good care
some
of people.
yeah, I do have some strategic business partners, but like, they've bought houses with me too. So you add that and it's just really close knit circle.
Yeah, so it really almost is
Mhm.
strictly repeat and referral, mostly based on repeat clients and client referrals.
Mhm.
And you are not reliant on whether or not I'm doing my job in my lead gen space as a loan originator looking to send out pre-approved buyers. And you're not reliant on Zillow or realtor.com or your bus bench ad. And yes, we all chuckle about the bus bench ad, but there are people doing it.
Yeah.
That one always kind of surprised me because if I'm riding the bus, I probably can't afford a house in Colorado. But neither here nor there. Maybe I'm just riding the bus because my car's in the shop. My Rolls Royce is in the shop. So I don't have a Rolls Royce. But for that one always kind of surprised me. But yeah, this is really cool stuff, June. So going forward, do you see any of this changing? And I know you're not in the direct Denver area, although I'm guessing you probably do a little business down here.
A little.
And obviously, there's been some turmoil with what goes on with the MLS here.
Mm-hmm.
I think a much bigger picture to frame is the turmoil that real estate agents have dealt with all year and is really now coming to a head with how we're going to deal with buyers and co-ops and commissions and these kinds of things. And knowing what we know about you from this point, we know you're just going to put your head down and work. So that I know it's not really bothering you, but what kind of advice would you give to agents? Well, that one, let's put it this way, folks, that we know that 80% of agents fail in the first couple of years. Typical NAR stat. That number's probably gone up, but a lot of that is because of the shit that June and I have been talking about. You don't need to know how to fill out a contract if you don't have a buyer. You don't need to know how to negotiate an inspection if you don't have a buyer or seller. And obviously, the real estate school model would go in the toilet if people in real estate school actually knew that it was a sales job, a lead gen job, that you need to find buyers. You can run your circle, but your great Aunt Ginny isn't buying a house every year. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to know how to generate business. It's not what you see on HGTV. Okay. But obviously, that's the nature of that beast, and so be it. It is what it is. But in reality, guys, the number of us still going around in this industry, real estate, mortgages, whatever, that have actually seen a buyer's market is like next to nothing. That you're getting some input from the two of us right now, where we actually do remember the turn of the century, as it were, when it came to real estate. What the crash looked like in 07, 08, what a boom looked like in 20 and 21, what we all had to deal with in 22 and 23. And now that we're finally starting to find what might be normal, or at least a new normal, is kind of unique. And June has seen all of these bullet points, all of these calendar marks that I just gave you guys. So she's a killer freaking resource for this kind of stuff. So, June, if you were going to give some advice to some new agents who haven't, before I let you do that, and yeah, we'll run over a little bit on time. Hopefully you're okay with a couple extra minutes.
Okay.
People ask me all the time, it's hard. Getting into the business now is hard, right? And I'm like, yeah, but it's always hard. It's just a different hard.
Yeah.
If you were doing short sales and REOs, that shit was hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was insane. And yes, right now it's hard, but it's just a different kind of hard. So, June, if you had wisdom to impart on newer agents, because, well, none of them have really seen a buyer's market, a handful of us that are left, what would you tell them? If somebody wanted to join your team, what would you tell them?
Yeah. And I do want to say right now is so much easier than it was with short sales and foreclosure. like this is like a breath of fresh air if you really like some of the short sales that took us over a year, or banks just didn't want to work with it and stuff. And homes sat on the market over a year. So I definitely think now is easy in comparison,
Okay, fair enough.
So the points I would like new agents to know is know your value. Like find out what are you going to specialize in and just get really good at it. If it's going to be first time home buyers, do everything, take as many classes. Like I'm a growth junkie where I'm always listening to podcasts, reading books, things like that. So know your specialty and really just advertise the crap out of it with everybody, and just really focus on it. Don't try to be everything to everybody, you know? And then when you know your value, then you're going to actually be able to stand up for yourself. Because I think if you don't have a lot of clientele, it's harder to give up, like to let one go that's probably not the best client for you to be serving.
Yeah, that's certainly true. That's a big one. But yes, have a niche. Know your niche.
Yes.
That kind of thing. Niche, however you guys want to pronounce it. That's certainly a big piece of the puzzle. And yeah, you're absolutely right. If you're new to the business, that's tough because you're not turning deals away. You need the business. You need the work. I get that. It for those of you that are petrified by that, like, oh my gosh, I'm only going to do first time home buyers, and there just aren't that many out there, and they're probably going to be less and less as time goes on. Housing shortage, home prices up. We're going to eventually get to a point where the only people buying houses are people that have houses and can leverage that into new houses or more houses, or people buying luxury items. So, yeah, I can understand where that is really, really scary. But take it with a grain of salt. And as time goes on, as you develop your lead gen, as you really exhibit that authenticity, that transparency in everything you do, networking events, one-on-one, meeting with clients, appreciation events, talking on the phone, your social media, video work, et cetera, you're going to organically attract an audience that is like you, that thinks like you, that likes the things that you do, so on and so forth. And the term we use a lot is that the trash takes itself out. The people that you wouldn't want to work with are going to organically repel from you, and you won't even know, which is great. And that's okay, because you're going to come across a lot of people at the early part of your career that are going to be a suck. They're going to drain your time. They're going to drain your energy. They're going to drain your skills. And if you were a seasoned veteran that had the ability to choose who you do and don't work with, you wouldn't have chosen them. So yeah, all of you in that space, do take that with a grain of salt. It gets better with time. And I'm reminiscent of an old friend who has since passed, but asked me years and years ago, what's the one thing you would tell somebody to do to get where you're at? And I said, work hard for 20 years. That was my answer. There are no unicorns. There's no magic potions. There's no shortcuts. Just buckle down and do it.
Do the work.
Do the work. Thank you.
Yes.
And when you are doing that, and when you're in control of that, you guys, you eliminate that roller coaster ride, and you get to control how big the ups and downs are. You want to do more work, turn up the volume knob. You want to take a break, turn it down. That's fine. Totally up to you, if you're in control of the work and you're actually doing the work.
Exactly.
All right. Give us a nugget, June. If we're going to sign off, give us something that we can take to the bank, something valuable. What do you like doing that produces results? Give us a tip, because that's really what we do at Just the Tips.
Okay, so back to like your first time agent or newer agents, things like that. I really feel like you should treat buyers like a seller's agent, like how I would treat a listing. So you need to have your buyer consultation. You need to go through everything so they can really see the value. If you're just jumping and showing them properties and not really doing the preparation to really help them see your value, that's taking money to the bank. If they know your value, because they're going to want to make sure you get paid, you're going to go through everything, and you're also going to weed out the people that wouldn't want to make sure you get paid.
Oh, and we got to do that more than ever now with the changes that went through the tort law system and the settlements that were a result of that. Absolutely. Great tip.
Yeah, definitely really refine that whole process. Get into coaching. Coaching is huge. It really makes a difference for you.
Oh, I'd say that's so true. Nice. And yes, I think I've spent the majority of my career as a coach and with a coach, being coached. And yeah, I can't stress that enough. And depending on who you are and where you are in your career path or in your life, is going to depend on who you seek out. But it's hard. People don't like doing it because a lot of coaches, like a lot of therapists, really are going to point out where our shortcomings are, where we need to improve, where we need to work. And yeah, we're humans. We don't like being told or shown where we suck.
Yeah.
That's it. Introspection is tough.
Adam, I think I'm weird because I want to improve. And so I like it's like going to work out. If I work out by myself, I'm not going to work out as hard as if I work out with Justin, my trainer. I will work out twice as hard because he makes me. So it's a level of accountability that coaching brings you.
Totally. And good on you, Justin. Push her hard, buddy. Make her sweat for it. You got it. Well, June, thank you for doing this. I knew you were a little nervous about this when we first started. You did great.
Thank you, Adam.
And let's do it again. We're probably still a year or so booked out, so I'll have somebody get you on the calendar for our next go round. And for the rest of you, you can catch us live on Mondays, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 Eastern, live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. 48 hours later, the podcast goes up on Amazon, Spotify, and Apple. And outside of that, for all the things about Just the Tips, if you want to see previous episodes of How I Met Your Mortgage, if you want to catch the video blog we do once a week, the weekly little tip, if you want copies of my books, either Just the Tips or Mindset Tools for Sales. And really important right now is the last weekend of every September, we do the Mile High Mastermind. We have a 2-day event really just for real estate agents and loan originators on lead generation, team structure. You can get tickets for that. They just went on sale last week. That will be in Denver, whatever that last weekend of September is. I think the 27th and 8th. It's a Friday and Saturday with some cool social activities circumnavigating that on either end. But for all that stuff, go check out Just the Tips Coaching. And other than that, we'll see you next week. June, thank you again. I loved having you on the show.
Thank you,
You absolutely killed it.
Thank you.
All right. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to run our extra and then give me just a minute and I'll catch up on a couple of other things. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in and we'll see you next time.